Jake stood in the middle of the shared spaceship apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked crates of tools and personal items. He let out a low whistle, impressed by the clean, sleek design of the place. It was a far cry from the grease-streaked workshops he was used to. Just as he set down his trusty, oversized toolbox, the door slid open with a soft hiss, and his new roommate entered. Zwayanera, or Zwayan for short, was tall, with a metallic sheen to her skin that reflected the apartment's ambient lighting. Her 4 eyes blinked in calculated unison as she took in the humans standing amidst a pile of clutter. Her posture was stiff, her mandibles clicking softly, a sure sign of disapproval. "I was informed you are an expert in primitive mechanical repairs," she said, her voice crisp and clinical. Yeah," Jake replied, tapping the side of his toolbox with pride. "I fix things. Make 'em better. This beauty here? She's got every tool I could ever need." Zwayan's eyes locked onto the massive toolbox, her expression shifting to something unreadable. "That is your tool?" Jake grinned. "Yep. Big, isn't it?" The alien scientist froze, her mandibles twitching erratically. Her species wasn't known for emotional displays, but Jake could have sworn she looked flustered. "Indeed," Zwayan said slowly, scanning the toolbox as though it were some ancient artifact. "Humans are peculiar. Is this typical for your kind?" Jake chuckled. "Depends who you ask. Some folks say I've got the biggest tool around." Zwayan stared at him, her brain clearly working overtime. "And you use this tool for what purpose, exactly?" "Fixing things," Jake said matter-of-factly, popping open the lid to reveal an assortment of gadgets. "Wrenches, laser cutters, molecular stabilizers, name it, I've got it. Perfect for keeping this place running smoothly." Her eyes widened, taking in the variety of implements. "Remarkable. Your tool appears to be multifunctional. Are all humans equipped with such versatility?" Jake smirked. "Not all of us, but I like to think I've got a certain flair." Zwayan didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, inspecting the toolbox as though it were emitting some sort of invisible radiation. She reached out tentatively, her hand hovering over a particularly shiny spanner. "Careful," Jake warned, pulling out a gadget shaped suspiciously like a hose with a nozzle. "This one's touchy. A little too much pressure, and it sprays everywhere." Zwayan snatched her hand back as though she'd been burned. "You mean it discharges?" Jake laughed. "Yeah, but only when you use it wrong. Here, let me show you." Before he could finish, the hose jerked to life, spraying a stream of lubricant across the room. Jake tried to wrangle it back under control while Zwayan leapt out of the way with an undignified squawk. The room was a mess within seconds. Jake finally managed to shut the nozzle off, standing in the middle of a lubricant-coated floor, looking sheepish. "Well, that wasn't supposed to happen," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Zwayan stood frozen on the far side of the room, her normally composed demeanor completely shattered. She held out a hand, examining the viscous substance now coating her fingers. "This fluid. Is it common for humans too?" Jake cut her off, his face red. No, it's not. That was a malfunction. Happens sometimes when you don't use the right settings." Zwayan tilted her head, her scientific curiosity overriding her discomfort. "Fascinating. Your tool appears to function as a biological metaphor." Jake stared at her, baffled. "Eh, what now?" "It appears to emulate certain reproductive processes. The resemblance is undeniable," she continued, pulling out a small recording device from her pocket. Whoa, Jake said, holding up his hands. "What are you doing?" "Documenting," Zwayan replied, her voice calm but her mandibles clicking excitedly. "This could be invaluable for cross-species behavioral studies." "Behavioral studies? Lady, it's a tool, not a—" "I insist," she interrupted, her tone leaving no room for argument. "The implications are extraordinary." Jake groaned but didn't argue further as Zwayan narrated into her recorder, describing his big tool with the detached precision of a scientist. Subject: human male. Equipment, massive, multifunctional tool capable of complex, fluid-based operations. Notable observation, said tool demonstrates impressive adaptability and output. Jake slapped a hand over his face. Oh, for the love of, it's a toolbox, ZYN. Not a mating ritual. ZYN ignored him, her focus entirely on her narration. Later that night, she uploaded the faceless recording to the Galactic Network, tagging it under Human Engineering and Behavior. By morning, the video had over 1 million views. The morning after the video's unexpected success, Jake stumbled into the kitchen area of their shared apartment, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He found ZYN perched at the table, multiple holographic screens floating around her as she analyzed the comments on her now viral video. "Good morning," ZYN said without looking up. Her mandibles clicked rhythmically, a sign of concentration. "Morning," Jake replied groggily. He poured himself a cup of coffee, then froze mid-sip when he caught a glimpse of the screen closest to him. "Wait, are those comments about me?" "Indeed," ZYN said, her tone matter-of-fact. "It appears the galactic populace is fascinated by your tool." Jake nearly choked on his coffee. "You posted that video?" "Of course. The data is invaluable," ZYN said, gesturing to a particularly popular comment thread. "Humans are clearly more advanced than we realized. Such powerful output. And this one, I need to see that big tool in action again." Jake groaned, burying his face in his hands. "ZYN, you made me galactic clickbait." "I did no such thing," she said, clearly unbothered. "The video serves an educational purpose. Any secondary interpretations are the fault of the viewers." "Secondary interpretations?" Jake scoffed. "ZYN, half these comments aren't about tools, they're about other things." ZYN blinked at him, genuinely confused. "Other things? What else could they possibly mean?" Jake sighed, realizing that trying to explain innuendo to someone as literal as ZYN was a losing battle. "Forget it. Just don't post anything else without asking me first, okay?" "I cannot promise that," ZYN replied. "Scientific discovery often requires immediate action." "Yeah, well, so does personal dignity," Jake muttered, shaking his head. Later that day, Jake found himself crouched under the coolant system in the apartment's engine room, a flashlight in one hand and his trusty wrench in the other. ZYN hovered nearby, her recorder in hand despite Jake's earlier protests. "This is a routine repair," Jake explained as he worked. "Nothing fancy. Just tightening a few loose bolts and clearing out the build-up in the pipes." "Fascinating," ZYN murmured, her recorder whirring softly. "And your tool?" ZYN, for the last time, "It's just a wrench," Jake interrupted. "A perfectly normal, not at all suggestive wrench." ZYN tilted her head, unconvinced. "Its shape is highly symbolic." Jake groaned, focusing on the task at hand. He gave one of the bolts an extra hard twist, and suddenly, a loud hiss filled the room as pressurized coolant sprayed out of the pipe. "Damn it!" Jake yelped, leaping back. The liquid drenched his shirt as he struggled to shut off the flow. ZYN, of course, was unfazed. "Remarkable," she said, recording every moment. "The tool's interaction with the system caused an immediate release of pressure. Truly, your methods are extraordinary." "It's called a mistake," Jake snapped, wrestling the valve closed. "Not everything is a human breakthrough." When they returned to the main living area, ZYN immediately began editing the footage. Jake slumped onto the couch, exhausted and still damp from the coolant incident. "Please tell me you're not uploading that," he said. ZYN didn't answer. She was too busy adding captions to the video. "Human repairs, witness the big tool in action." "ZYN!" Jake protested, but it was too late. The upload was already in progress. By the time Jake checked his comm device later that evening, the video had already gone viral. Again. The comment section was even worse this time. "This human knows how to handle his equipment," Jake read aloud, his face turning red. "I wouldn't mind hiring him to tighten my bolts." "Oh, come on! You should be pleased," Ziyan said, looking up from her analysis. Your popularity is increasing exponentially. My popularity? Jake said, exasperated. People think I'm some kind of galactic handyman porn star. Ziyan frowned, tilting her head. Porn star? Is that a human title of prestige? Jake stared at her for a long moment before bursting out laughing. You really have no idea what you've started, do you? Ziyan's mandibles clicked, her confusion evident. I have merely presented an accurate depiction of your abilities. If others choose to misinterpret it, that is not my responsibility. Jake shook his head, still laughing despite himself. You're impossible. That night, Ziyan's latest video broke records, becoming the most watched clip on the Galactic Network within hours. Jake begrudgingly admitted that the attention had its perks. He was already getting offers for paid repair jobs from people who had seen the videos. Still, he couldn't help but feel like the butt of a universal joke. The aftermath of the latest video left Jake in a strange limbo. On one hand, his reputation as a capable handyman was spreading far and wide, even earning him a few lucrative offers to work on high-profile jobs across the galaxy. On the other hand, the relentless double meanings and Ziyan's oblivious narration were turning him into an interstellar punchline. Ziyan, of course, was oblivious to the nuances of the situation. She sat at her workstation, deep in thought, surrounded by holographic blueprints and scattered notes about human mechanics. Jake, trying to salvage some normalcy, was back at work on a small project, modifying one of his tools to handle tighter, more intricate spaces. Ziyan, Jake said, not looking up. Do you ever consider how your little science experiments affect other people? Ziyan's head tilted slightly, her metallic skin catching the light. I have considered it, yes. The data collected has proven invaluable for understanding human ingenuity. You should take pride in the contributions you've made. Jake sighed. It's not the data I'm worried about. It's the context. People think, never mind, forget it. But Ziyan didn't forget. Instead, her focus shifted to the tool Jake was working on. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she studied the modifications. That tool, she began, her voice carrying the weight of scientific curiosity, has greater precision than the previous ones you've demonstrated. What purpose does it serve? Jake rolled his eyes. It's for repairs in tight spots. You know, when the usual stuff won't fit. Ziyan's mandibles twitched. Fascinating. Your ability to adapt your tools for specific needs is remarkable. I assume this one also discharges under pressure? Jake groaned, putting the tool down. Ziyan, it's not always about, never mind. Yes, it can handle pressure. Happy now? I am, she replied, her tone completely serious. In fact, this inspires me to conduct a new experiment. Before Jake could protest, Ziyan began gathering components from around the room. Wires, conduits, and a few spare parts from Jake's toolbox piled up on the table as she worked at a speed that would put most engineers to shame. Jake watched, equal parts impressed and horrified. Are you seriously using my tools to build, whatever that is? He asked, stepping closer to get a better look. It is a prototype. Ziyan explained, her hands moving deftly. Combining human ingenuity with alien precision to create something entirely new. Jake's curiosity got the better of him. What exactly are you making? Ziyan paused, her expression one of triumph. A portable matter stabilizer. Jake blinked. What now? A device capable of reassembling unstable matter at the molecular level. Ziyan explained as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. Your tools provided the inspiration. Specifically, their multifunctionality and adaptability. Jake scratched his head. And you think this stabilizer is going to work? Of course, Ziyan said, her confidence unshakable. Assuming your tools perform as reliably as they have in previous experiments. Jake decided not to dwell on the implications of that statement. Instead, he watched as Ziyan made the final adjustments to the device, a sleek contraption that looked like a cross between a plasma cutter and a datapad. Shall we test it? Ziyan asked, holding up the stabilizer with an air of accomplishment. Jake hesitated. Tested how? Ziwayan gestured to a cracked panel on the wall. The integrity of that panel has been compromised. If the stabilizer functions correctly, it will restore the material to its original state. Jake gave a cautious nod. All right. Let's see what you've got. Ziwayan activated the stabilizer, aiming it at the damaged panel. A soft hum filled the room as a beam of light engulfed the crack. Seconds later, the panel was perfectly restored, smooth and flawless as if it had never been damaged. Jake let out a low whistle. I'll be damned. It actually works. Of course it does, Ziwayan said, her tone tinged with satisfaction. I had an excellent foundation to work with. Jake smirked. So, what now? You planning to upload another video about this little invention? Ziwayan's eyes lit up. Naturally. The potential applications are extraordinary. Jake groaned. Great. Can't wait to see how the comments twist this one. But the video wasn't just another viral hit. Within hours of its upload, Ziwayan and Jake were flooded with messages from scientists, engineers, and corporations across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to collaborate, license the stabilizer, or simply learn more about the duo behind its creation. This is a lot, Jake admitted as he scrolled through the messages on his comm device. It is to be expected, Ziwayan replied unfazed. Innovation often attracts attention. Jake leaned back in his chair, still trying to wrap his head around everything. Despite his initial reluctance, he couldn't deny the pride he felt in what they'd accomplished together. You know, he said after a moment, you're not so bad to work with. For a crazy alien scientist, I mean. Ziwayan looked at him, her mandibles clicking in what Jake was beginning to recognize as amusement. And you are surprisingly competent for a human. Despite your frequent malfunctions. Jake laughed, shaking his head. Thanks, I think. Their banter continued late into the night, the tension between them softening as they celebrated their success. Neither of them noticed how naturally their partnership had evolved, or the subtle shift in the way they looked at each other. In the days that followed, the portable matter stabilizer became the talk of the galaxy. Jake and Ziwayan found themselves at the center of a whirlwind of attention, receiving invitations to conferences, requests for interviews, and endless proposals from eager collaborators. For Ziwayan, it was a dream come true, her scientific prowess finally recognized on a galactic scale. For Jake, it was a little more complicated. The fame was flattering, sure, but the underlying humor surrounding his so-called big tool refused to die down. Every new mention of their invention seemed to be paired with a tongue-in-cheek comment or a suggestive meme. So, Jake said one evening, lounging on the couch while scrolling through yet another round of messages. Does it ever bother you that people think we're, more than roommates? Ziwayan glanced up from her workstation, her mandibles twitching in thought. Define more. Jake cleared his throat, suddenly feeling awkward. You know, like, involved. Romantically. Or, physically. Ziwayan tilted her head, considering this. It is a logical assumption. Many species equate close collaboration with intimate relationships. Yeah, but we're not. Jake trailed off, searching for the right words. I mean, we're just colleagues, right? Ziwayan set down her tools and turned to face him fully. Our partnership has proven highly effective. If certain observers wish to interpret it as indicative of a deeper connection, does it matter? Jake frowned. I guess not. It's just weird, you know? Having people make assumptions about us. Ziwayan studied him for a moment, her gaze uncharacteristically soft. Do those assumptions make you uncomfortable? Jake hesitated. Not uncomfortable, exactly. It's just complicated. Complicated, Ziwayan echoed, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. Human relationships are often described as such. Perhaps you could clarify. Jake laughed, shaking his head. I don't think I could clarify if I tried. Half the time, I don't even understand my own feelings. Fascinating, Ziwayan said, her tone indicating genuine curiosity. Perhaps it is this complexity that makes humans so intriguing. Jake chuckled. Yeah, well, it's a lot less intriguing when you're living it. Their conversation was interrupted by a ping from ZYN's workstation. She turned back to her screens, her expression shifting to one of intense focus. It seems our stabilizer has attracted the attention of a prominent research institute, she said. They wish to meet with us to discuss a potential partnership. Jake leaned over to read the message. Prominent, huh? Looks more like they want to buy us out. ZYN frowned. Unacceptable. This technology must remain accessible for the benefit of all species. Jake nodded, impressed by her conviction. All right. Let's hear them out, but we're not signing anything until we know what they're planning. The meeting took place a few days later, in a sleek, high-tech conference room aboard a massive research station. ZYN was in her element, discussing the stabilizer's design and potential applications with the Institute's top scientists. Jake, meanwhile, found himself fielding questions about his tools, questions that, as usual, came loaded with double meanings. Mr. Carter, one scientist began, your ingenuity is truly remarkable. Tell me, is your big tool available for public demonstration? Jake resisted the urge to groan. It's a toolbox, he said for what felt like the 100th time. You want a demonstration? Hire me for a job. The scientist chuckled, clearly enjoying the wordplay. Fair enough. Still, your reputation precedes you. I must say, I've never seen such hands-on expertise. Jake shot ZYN a look, silently pleading for rescue, but she was too engrossed in her technical discussion to notice. After the meeting, ZYN and Jake returned to their apartment, both feeling the weight of the day's events. Well, Jake said, collapsing onto the couch. That was exhausting. ZYN nodded, sitting beside him. The Institute's interest is promising, but their intentions remain unclear. We must proceed cautiously. Agreed, Jake said, then hesitated. Hey, ZYN? Yes? Do you ever think about what's next? For us, I mean. ZYN tilted her head, her gaze steady. Define next? Jake sighed. I don't know. Like, after all this stabilizer stuff. Do we just go back to normal? ZYN considered this. Our partnership has proven highly beneficial. It would be logical to continue collaborating on future projects. Jake smiled. Yeah, I'd like that. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, the hum of the apartment's systems filling the air. Then, as if on cue, Jake's calm device pinged with a notification. He groaned, already dreading what it might be. Another comment? ZYN asked. Jake glanced at the screen, then burst out laughing. Nope. It's a job offer. Somebody wants me to fix their ship's engine. Says they were inspired by the videos. ZYN's mandibles clicked in amusement. It seems your tool has become a symbol of reliability. Jake grinned, shaking his head. Yeah, well, I guess there are worse things to be known for. As the laughter died down, ZYN looked at him, her expression unreadable. Jake? Yeah? Your tools are impressive, she said, her tone uncharacteristically soft. But your ingenuity is what truly stands out. It is admirable. Jake blinked, caught off guard by the sincerity in her voice. Thanks, ZYN. That means a lot. She nodded, her mandibles clicking softly. You are a valuable partner. In many ways. Jake's grin widened. Careful, ZYN. People might start thinking you actually like me. Perhaps they would not be entirely incorrect, she replied, her tone teasing yet sincere. Jake laughed, shaking his head. You're something else, ZYN. Something else. As they settled into their usual banter, the weight of their newfound fame felt a little lighter. Whatever came next, Jake knew one thing for sure. Life with ZYN was never going to be boring.